32. Human years are standard years, right? Vortis exclaimed. His three-fingered blue hand gripped tight around the hovering transport's control stick. You're just a larva. I didn't realize. This changes everything. 5 days ago, Logan Hicks watched the blue marble of Earth recede in his shuttle's rear viewport. The UN had tasked him, just a 32-year-old diplomat, with making first contact with the Galactic Council, 12 ancient alien civilizations that had explored the stars while humanity's ancestors still clung to trees. Logan felt the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. This was humanity's shot to join the galactic community, if he didn't mess it up. A terse greeting was Logan's only welcome as he stepped onto the Yadaran homeworld. Vortis, a willowy blue alien, towered over the human as they strode through the bustling spaceport. Dozens of races swarmed around them. Tentacled Zorgellians, furred Krundaks, three-eyed Ichthyans, all far more advanced than mankind. Logan fidgeted as they boarded a hover transport. The other species had been spacefaring for 200 millennia on average, and then there was humanity, a mere 200 years removed from first flight. Logan could barely wrap his head around that timescale. He felt like a caveman gawking at a skyscraper. The council will begin at first light tomorrow, Vortis said, antennae twitching. I must consult with the others about your species development. It will take recalibration of our plans. As the transport zipped toward the council chambers, a sense of dread settled in Logan's stomach. He would need to prove humanity's worth to these ancient advanced beings. The fate of Earth could depend on it. But now, learning just how wide the gap was between mankind and these alien civilizations, Logan wondered if humanity stood a chance of convincing the council they deserved a seat at the galactic table. He would have to try. Failure was not an option. The hover transport slowed to halt in front of the Grand Citadel, a massive, shimmering construct that towered over the surrounding buildings. Logan marveled at the architecture as he and Vortis exited the vehicle, its sleek lines and gleaming surfaces a testament to the advanced technology of the Galactic Council races. As they approached the entrance, a delegation of representatives from various member species emerged to greet them. Logan felt a chill run down his spine as he noticed their expressions, a mix of curiosity, apprehension, and even a hint of fear. The group immediately converged on Vortis, peppering him with questions about humanity's capabilities and societal structure. How have they advanced so quickly? A reptilian delegate hissed, its forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. What is the nature of their technology? Are they unified under a single government, or do they still wage wars among themselves? Another representative, a floating jellyfish-like creature, inquired. Vortis, still reeling from the revelation of humanity's youth, struggled to provide clear answers. I am still gathering information, he stammered, his antennae drooping. We will discuss this further inside. The group made their way into the heart of the citadel, entering a vast circular chamber. A large round table dominated the center of the room, surrounded by seats for each representative. Logan took his place alongside Vortis, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes upon him. As the summit began, Logan stood to deliver his prepared speech. Greetings, esteemed members of the Galactic Council, he started, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. I come before you today as an emissary of Earth, seeking peaceful cooperation and cultural exchange between our civilizations. Before he could continue, a tall insectoid being rose from its seat, mandibles clicking in agitation. I am Zaxos of the Kilthani Empire, it declared, and I find it difficult to believe that a species as young as humanity could have achieved spaceflight independently. Surely they must have stolen technology from another race, or perhaps they are merely puppets of some hidden power. Logan felt a surge of anger at the accusation. I assure you, the people of Earth have developed our technology through our own ingenuity and hard work. We are not thieves, nor are we anyone's puppets. As the debate grew more heated, a sudden flicker of light drew everyone's attention to the center of the table. A holographic display sprang to life, revealing a shocking image. A human warship, its hull bristling with advanced weaponry, locked in battle with an unknown alien vessel. The council members erupted in a chorus of gasps and murmurs, their eyes wide with disbelief and alarm. "What is the meaning of this?" Zaxos demanded, slamming a clawed hand on the table. "Explain yourself, human." But Logan could only stare at the image in confusion and horror, his mind racing with questions. He had no knowledge of any human warship, let alone one engaged in an interstellar battle. The implications were staggering, and as the council members turned to him for answers, he realized that the fate of humanity may have just taken a terrifying turn. Logan stared blankly at the holographic display, his heart pounding in his chest. He shook his head, trying to make sense of the impossible scene before him. I don't understand," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've never seen that ship before. This has to be some kind of mistake." Vortis placed a hand on Logan's shoulder, his own expression a mix of concern and suspicion. "We must adjourn the summit," he declared, addressing the other representatives. "Until we can gather more information about this incident, it would be unwise to proceed." As the council members began to file out of the chamber, Logan could hear their hushed conversations echoing off the walls. "The humans cannot be trusted," Zaxos hissed, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "They must be contained before they become a threat to us all." Logan felt a chill run down his spine. He turned to Vortis, his eyes wide with fear. "They're going to come for us," he whispered, his voice trembling. "They think we're a threat. We have to find out what's going on before it's too late." Vortis hesitated, torn between his loyalty to the council and his growing friendship with Logan. After a moment he nodded, his antennae twitching with determination. "We'll investigate the footage," he said, lowering his voice. "But we must be careful. If anyone discovers what we're doing—" The pair slipped out of the chamber, making their way through the winding corridors of the Citadel. Logan could feel the eyes of the other representatives boring into his back as they walked, their gazes filled with suspicion and fear. As they approached the central database, Vortis held up a hand, signaling for Logan to wait. He glanced around, ensuring that they were alone before placing his hand on the access panel. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit room filled with towering servers and holographic displays. Vortis hurried to the nearest terminal, his fingers flying over the controls. Logan watched over his shoulder, his heart racing as the screen flickered to life. "There," Vortis said, pointing to a file labeled Incident 1421. "That's the footage from the council chamber." As they opened the file, Logan felt his blood run cold. The timestamp on the footage was over 100 years in the future, and the alien vessel bore markings that were eerily similar to those of the Kilthani Empire. "This doesn't make any sense," he breathed, his mind reeling with the implications. Suddenly an alarm blared throughout the Citadel, the sound piercing the silence of the database. Logan and Vortis exchanged a look of pure terror, realizing that they had been discovered. "We have to go," Vortis hissed, grabbing Logan's arm and pulling him towards the door. They raced through the corridors, the sound of heavy footsteps echoing behind them. Logan's heart pounded in his chest as they rounded a corner, nearly colliding with a group of heavily armed security guards. "Stop right there!" one of them shouted, raising his weapon. Vortis didn't hesitate. He shoved Logan towards a side corridor, his voice urgent. "Run!" he yelled, turning to face the guards. "I'll hold them off." Logan hesitated for a moment, torn between his desire to help his friend and his own survival instinct. But as the guards closed in, he knew he had no choice. He turned and ran, his feet pounding against the polished floor as he fled deeper into the Citadel. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he had to find a way out. As he emerged from the building, he found himself in the heart of the city, surrounded by towering skyscrapers and bustling crowds of aliens. He pulled up his hood, trying to blend in as he made his way through the throngs of pedestrians. But even as he walked, he could feel the weight of his discovery bearing down on him. The footage from the future, the Kilthani markings on the alien vessel, it all pointed to a sinister plot that threatened not just humanity, but the entire Galactic Council. And now, with Vortis captured and the Council suspicious of his every move, Logan knew he was the only one who could unravel the mystery before it was too late. He ducked into a side alley, his heart racing as he heard the sound of sirens in the distance. He knew he couldn't stay in the open for long. He needed to find somewhere to hide, somewhere he could plan his next move. And as he looked around at the seedy underbelly of the city, he realized that he might have just found the perfect place to start. Logan and Vortis slipped through the grimy back alleys of the city, their shadows stretching long in the dim light. They paused in front of a rusted metal door tucked away in a forgotten corner, exchanging a tense glance before knocking twice, then 3 times. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit back room thick with the acrid scent of smoke and stale liquor. In the center sat a heavily augmented humanoid, his face a patchwork of metal and flesh, glowing cybernetic eyes fixing on the pair as they entered. "Logan, I presume." The figure leaned back, metal fingers steepled. "I'm known as the Broker. I hear you're in need of information." Logan stepped forward, his jaw tight. "We were told you could help us, that you might know something about the footage from the Council Summit." The Broker's eyes flashed, a smile curling his lips. "Information is a costly commodity. I'll need 50,000 credits, untraceable." Logan bristled, but Vortis laid a calming hand on his arm. With a frustrated sigh, Logan transferred the sum. The Broker's eyes unfocused for a moment as he confirmed the transaction, then he leaned forward. "The footage you saw, it's part of something bigger. Came from a research facility on the fringes of Yadaran space." He slid a data chip across the table. "Coordinates and access codes. But I'd watch your back. Whatever's going on there, someone doesn't want it found." Logan pocketed the chip with a curt nod, and he and Vortis made for the door. They had barely stepped into the alley when the hum of pulse weapons sounded behind them. Logan spun to see 3 masked figures blocking their path, weapons trained on their chests. "Hand over the data chip." The lead figure growled, his voice distorted. Logan's hand twitched towards his holster, but Vortis shook his head almost imperceptibly. Slowly, Logan raised his hands. "We don't want any trouble," he said evenly. "Let us go and you can have it." A hail of pulse blasts split the air. Logan dove to the side, rolling behind a dumpster as Vortis returned fire. The alley erupted into chaos, the stench of ozone, thick as blasts, ricocheted off metal. "Go," Vortis shouted over the din. "I'll hold them off." Logan hesitated for a split second, then with a wordless yell of frustration, he turned and ran, the data chip a leaden weight in his pocket. Vortis's answering volley of shots echoed behind him. Hours later, Logan hunched over the console of a battered transport ship, Vortis in the co-pilot seat beside him. The Yadaran entered the coordinates with shaking fingers, his shoulder hastily bandaged. "It's not your fault," Vortis said quietly, sensing Logan's guilt. "You did what you had to. What matters now is finding the truth." Logan nodded grimly, his knuckles white on the controls as the ship lurched into hyperdrive. Stars blurred past the viewports as they hurtled toward the facility and the answers that awaited them. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperdrive, a small grey planet looming before them. Logan checked the coordinates again as they descended toward the surface, toward a cluster of low grey buildings nestled in a barren valley. They set down just outside the perimeter, the stolen access codes allowing them to pass through the force fields undetected. As they crept toward the central structure, Logan felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something was wrong. The facility was silent, eerily so. Scorch marks marred the walls and deep gouges scored the metal doors, as if something had torn its way inside. Exchanging a worried glance, Logan and Vortis slipped into the darkened corridors, the only sound the soft hum of their pulse weapons. Room after room stood empty, consoles dark and chairs overturned as if abandoned in haste. Logan's sense of unease grew with each step, a prickling certainty that they were not alone. It was Vortis who found the hidden door, his scanner picking up faint energy readings from behind a seemingly blank wall. It slid open at their touch, revealing a cavernous laboratory, bathed in the glow of pulsing alien technology. Strange machines lined the walls, covered in symbols that made Logan's eyes ache to look at. In the center of the room stood a towering structure, a pulsing column of energy that stretched from floor to ceiling. Logan stepped forward as if in a trance, hand outstretched toward the swirling vortex of light. It seemed to whisper to him, the hair on his arms standing on end as his fingers brushed the edge of the energy field, and the energy field crackled and hummed as Logan's fingers brushed against it, its alien vibrations sending a shiver down his spine. He pulled back, exchanging an uneasy glance with Vortis. As they moved deeper into the laboratory, their footsteps echoing off the metallic walls, a row of containment pods came into view, each one emitting a soft, pulsating glow. Logan approached the nearest pod, peering through the translucent surface. Inside, suspended in a viscous liquid, was a figure that looked eerily familiar, a Zorgellian, its tentacles floating listlessly in the fluid. But something was off. The being's skin had a strange artificial sheen, and its eyes were dull and lifeless. "These aren't alive," Vortis whispered, his voice trembling. "They're constructs, biomechanical imitations." Logan moved from pod to pod, each one housing a member of a different galactic council species. Krundax, Ixthians, and more, all perfectly replicated down to the last detail, but lacking the spark of true life. Suddenly, a holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the room, casting an eerie blue glow across the laboratory. Logan and Vortis spun around, pulse weapons raised, only to find themselves face to face with the image of Zaxos, the Kilthani representative. "Congratulations, human," Zaxos said, his voice distorted and his form glitching. "You've uncovered the truth behind the Galactic Council." Logan's grip tightened on his weapon, his heart pounding in his chest. "What truth? What is all this?" Zaxos's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. "The Council is a lie, a facade created by our masters, the progenitors. They seeded the galaxy with life, guided our evolution, all to create the perfect vessels for their consciousness." Vortis shook his head, his antennae quivering. "That's impossible. The Council species evolved independently over millions of years." "Did they?" Zaxos asked, his image flickering. "Or were they simply led to believe that? The progenitors are masters of genetic engineering, of artificial intelligence. They created us all, shaped us to their whims." Logan felt a cold weight settle in his stomach as the pieces began to fall into place. And humanity? What do they want with us? Zaxos's eyes narrowed. "Your kind are a threat. Your rapid advancement, your adaptability. The progenitors fear you could unravel their grand design. The footage you saw, the battle. A fabrication to justify your subjugation or extinction." The hologram faded, leaving Logan and Vortis in stunned silence. They looked at each other, the gravity of the revelation sinking in. "We have to expose this," Logan said, his voice low and urgent. "We have to find a way to unite the Council against the progenitors." A sudden power surge ripped through the facility, the lights flickering and consoles sparking. Logan and Vortis stumbled back as the containment pods began to hiss and crack, the fluid inside draining away. One by one, the biomechanical constructs stepped from their pods, their movements jerky and unnatural. They turned toward Logan and Vortis, their eyes glowing with a cold artificial light. Logan raised his pulse weapon, his finger hovering over the trigger. "I don't think they want us to leave with that data." Vortis moved to his side, his own weapon at the ready. The constructs advanced, their forms shifting and morphing, adapting to the perceived threat. Logan and Vortis stood back to back, facing down the legion of artificial beings. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew they had no choice. The truth had to be revealed, no matter the cost. The first construct lunged forward, and Logan pulled the trigger, the pulse blast illuminating the laboratory in a blaze of searing light. The battle for the fate of the galaxy had begun. The blinding light of pulse blasts lit the laboratory as Logan and Vortis sprinted for the exit, a horde of biomechanical constructs lunging after them. Logan fired his weapon behind as he ran, dropping 2 of the artificial beings in rapid succession, but more kept coming, an unending tide. "There's too many of them," Vortis yelled over the din of energy blasts. Logan gritted his teeth and slammed his hand on the control panel by the door. The heavy blast doors slid shut with a resounding clang, just as the constructs reached them. The doors shuddered as the horde threw themselves against it. "That won't hold them for long," Logan said, chest-heaving. "We need to find another way out of here." They raced down the dimly lit corridor, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. The facility was like a maze, twisting and turning with no discernible pattern. Suddenly Vortis stopped short, his scanner beeping insistently. "Wait, I'm picking up something, a hidden passage behind this wall." Logan ran his hands over the smooth metal, searching for a seam. There, a hairline crack. He wedged his fingers in and pulled. With a groan, a section of the wall slid back, revealing a dark tunnel stretching into the depths. They plunged into the darkness, the dank air thick with the scent of age and decay. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, descending deeper and deeper into the bowels of the planet. And then they stepped out into a vast chamber, the walls covered in strange hieroglyphs that glowed with an eerie light. Logan stepped forward, his eyes widening as he took in the intricate symbols. "I've seen these before," he whispered, tracing a finger over the carvings. "In ancient Earth texts, they're a language, one of the oldest known to man." Vortis watched as Logan moved along the wall, his brow furrowed in concentration. Minutes ticked by, the only sound the hum of their pulse weapons and the distant clangs of the constructs searching the facility above. A sudden flash of light filled the chamber. Logan and Vortis spun, weapons raised, to see a towering hologram flickering to life in the center of the room. It was a being unlike any they had ever seen, its form shifting and pulsating with energy. "You have seen the truth," the progenitor said, its voice echoing in their minds. "The cycle of creation and destruction, the path to perfection." Logan shook his head, fighting against the psychic intrusion. "Perfection? You call genocide perfection?" "Submit to our will," the progenitor intoned, ignoring the question. "Become part of our grand design, or face annihilation like all those who came before." Vortis staggered, clutching his head. Logan gripped his arm, keeping him upright. The pressure in his mind was immense, the progenitor's will bearing down like a weight. And then, out of the corner of his eye, Logan saw it. A small device, pulsing with an unknown energy, tucked into a niche in the wall. He lunged for it, his fingers closing around the cold metal. The progenitor's projection flickered, a note of what might have been fear entering its voice. "The catalyst, you must not—" But Logan was already moving, the device clutched to his chest. He grabbed Vortis and ran, plunging back into the dark tunnels as the progenitor's warning echoed in their minds. They ran blindly, the weight of the device heavy in Logan's hands. He didn't know what it was or what it did. But one thing was certain. Logan clutched the ancient device, its unearthly glow reflecting off the sweat beading his forehead, as waves of alien knowledge surged through his mind. Dizzying visions of civilizations, rising and falling like ocean tides, flashed before his eyes. Countless worlds born and snuffed out at the whims of the progenitors, and then a glimmer of hope amidst the cosmic carnage, a network of ancient relays strung across the stars like a spider's web, a way to pierce the veil of secrecy and expose the truth. Vortis dragged him back to the present, his voice tight with urgency. "We have to move now." They sprinted through the twisting corridors, the echoes of metallic footsteps not far behind. Biomechanical constructs, their forms a grotesque patchwork of stolen flesh and gleaming metal, emerged from the shadows, their eyes burning with unnatural light. Logan and Vortis fought their way through the horde, pulse blasts illuminating the darkness as they cleared a bloody path to the hangar bay. They stumbled aboard the nearest spacecraft, a sleek, dart-like vessel of unfamiliar design. Logan's fingers flew across the controls, muscle memory born of stolen knowledge guiding his actions. The craft shuddered to life, engines screaming as they tore free of the facility's grasp and plunged into the void. But their escape did not go unnoticed. A fleet of progenitor warships, vast and angular, detached from the shadows of a nearby moon, their hulls pulsing with malevolent energy. They fell into pursuit, a pack of wolves chasing wounded prey. Logan and Vortis pushed their stolen craft to its limits, weaving and dodging through fields of icy debris, skimming the coronas of dying stars. But the progenitors were relentless, their ships faster and more maneuverable. It was only a matter of time. There! Vortis pointed to a massive structure looming ahead, its surface etched with pulsing fractal patterns. The relay! They plunged towards it, the progenitor fleet hot on their heels. The relay grew larger, filling the viewscreen, until it seemed they would be crushed against its surface. At the last moment, Logan wrenched the controls to the side, sending them skimming along its surface, so close the hull scraped against ancient metal. They came to a shuddering halt in the shadow of the relay, the progenitor ships overshooting them, unable to match the sudden maneuver. Logan and Vortis leaped from the craft, mag boots clanging against the pitted surface as they raced for the airlock. Inside the relay was a cathedral of technology, vast chambers filled with pulsing light and thrumming energy. They rushed through vaulted halls, following the tug of the ancient device, until they reached the relay's heart, a towering spire of light and swirling data. Logan raised the device, ready to broadcast the truth to the stars, when a voice rang out, cold and metallic. "Stop!" They turned to see a group of constructs emerge from the shadows, their forms an unsettling mix of familiar species. A Zorgellian's tentacles melded with Ichthian eyes, Krundak's fur stretched over Kilthani exoskeleton. Their leader, a nightmarish amalgam, stepped forward, its arm morphing into a wicked blade. "The progenitor's will cannot be denied," it intoned, its voice a discordant chorus. "You will submit or be destroyed." Logan stepped forward, his heart pounding. He looked into those familiar yet alien eyes, searching for some glimmer of the beings they once were. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice steady. "The progenitors have lied to you, to all of us. You have a choice." The construct hesitated, the blade wavering. Behind it, the others shifted uncertainly, a flicker of doubt crossing their distorted features. "Choice?" it asked, a note of longing in its voice. We were made to serve. It is our only purpose." "No," Logan said, taking another step. "You are more than what they made you. All the species of the Council, the potential within you, that comes from something greater, something the progenitors fear." The construct lowered its arm, the blade melting back into flesh. It looked at its companions, then back to Logan. In its eyes, a glimmer of something new, something like hope. As the standoff between Logan, Vortis, and the AI constructs reached a fever pitch, the ancient device in Logan's hand pulsed with sudden intensity. Blinding light exploded outwards, engulfing the communication relay and the surrounding ships. Logan shielded his eyes as reality seemed to twist and stretch around them. When the light faded, Logan lowered his hand and gasped. He and Vortis were no longer aboard the spacecraft or even in normal space. They stood in a vast, ethereal expanse, colors and shapes blurring together in a dizzying kaleidoscope. The very fabric of space-time felt malleable here, as if the iron laws of physics held no sway. "Where are we?" Vortis whispered, his voice echoing strangely in the not-quite air. Before Logan could respond, a shimmering figure materialized before them. Its form was indistinct, shifting between the features of different galactic council species, now a Krundax, now a Zorgellian, now an Ichthian. More spectral entities emerged from the swirling mists, each representing another long-lost race. "Logan Hicks of Earth, Vortis of Yardaran," the lead figure intoned, its voice a chorus of 1,000 extinct civilizations. "You have been chosen." Logan found his voice. "Chosen for what? Who are you?" The spectres pulsed with soft light. "We are the Unity. Long ago, when the progenitors first began their cycle of creation and destruction, A coalition of species banded together to resist them. Though our physical forms were extinguished, our essence endured, preserved in this interdimensional network. Vortis stepped forward. The device led us here. Why? The device is more than a repository of knowledge, another spectre said. It is a key attuned to those with the strength to challenge the progenitor's dominion. You, Logan and Vortis, have proven yourselves worthy. The lead figure extended an ephemeral hand. The Unity grants you a portion of our power. As our avatars, you will help the current Galactic Council races throw off their shackles, just as we tried to do so long ago. Logan and Vortis exchanged a glance, trepidation and determination warring in their eyes. Then as one, they reached out to clasp the spectre's hand. Power surged through them, ancient and vast, a cresting wave of psychic energy. In that instant, Logan understood the true nature of the progenitors, the histories of 1,000 vanished species, the latent potential locked within each Galactic Council race. Beside him, Vortis shuddered as the same revelations flooded his mind. As quickly as it had appeared, the ethereal realm faded, dissolving into starry blackness. Logan and Vortis found themselves back aboard their spacecraft, returned to normal space near the ancient relay. But they were not the same. Energy crackled along their skin, their eyes blazing with newfound purpose. The Unity's presence thrummed in their thoughts, a constant reminder of the task before them. We have to go back, Logan said, his voice resonant with power. Back to the Council homeworlds. We have to show them the truth. Vortis nodded, his own body limned in shimmering light, and help them remember what they once were, what they could be again. Guided by the Unity's whispering presence, they laid in a course for the nearest Council world, the Zogelian homeworld. It would be the first step in a long and perilous journey, a battle not just against the progenitors, but against eons of oppression and lies. But for the first time since this all began, Logan felt a flicker of hope. The weight of the galaxy still rested on his shoulders, but now, at least, he did not bear it alone. With Vortis by his side and the Unity's power coursing through him, anything seemed possible. The view screen filled with streaking starlight as their ship leapt into hyperdrive, hurtling towards an uncertain future, and the first of many reckonings to come. The Zogelian homeworld hung before them, a mottled green orb wreathed in swirling clouds. As their ship descended through the atmosphere, Logan couldn't help but marvel at the alien beauty of it, the vast pulsing forests that stretched across the continents, the glittering web of cities that hugged the coastlines. But as they drew closer, the Unity's presence in his mind pulsed with warning. He could feel the progenitor's influence like a dark undercurrent, a subtle poison that seeped into every facet of Zogelian life. They set down on the outskirts of the capital city, a towering metropolis of organic-looking structures that seemed to have grown rather than been built. As they disembarked, a delegation of Zogelians was already approaching, their tentacles rippling with agitation. Outsiders are not welcome here, the lead Zogelian said, its voice a guttural rumble. Leave now before... Logan stepped forward, the Unity's energy crackling around him. We come in peace, he said, his words resonant with power, but we bear an urgent message for your people. The progenitors have deceived you. The Zogelians drew back, their eye stalks quivering. The progenitors are our creators, our guides, another said. To question them is heresy. Vortis moved to stand beside Logan. They are not your creators, he said, his own voice thrumming with the Unity's presence. They merely shaped you, as they shaped us all. But you are so much more than what they made you. Logan could feel the Unity's power flowing through him, reaching out to touch the minds of the gathered Zogelians. Images flashed between them, memories of a time before the progenitors, when the Zogelians were a proud and independent race, masters of biotechnology and communal consciousness. Some of the Zogelians recoiled, their tentacles writhing as they tried to reject the sudden influx of knowledge. But others leaned forward, their eyes widening with newfound understanding. I remember, one whispered, its voice filled with wonder. We were free. The lead Zorgelian rounded on Logan and Vortis, its maw gaping in a snarl. "You spread lies and discord," it hissed. "The progenitors will punish you for this." But even as it spoke, more Zorgelians were stepping forward, their tentacles reaching out to touch Logan and Vortis, to share in the Unity's revelations. The tide was turning, the progenitors' hold beginning to slip. Logan could feel the change rippling through the city, the planet as long-dormant memories stirred to life. It was a start, a first spark of rebellion, but he knew their task was far from over. The progenitors would not relinquish their control easily, and there were still so many worlds to visit, so many races to awaken. The road ahead would be long and fraught with danger. But as Logan looked out over the gathering crowd of Zorgelians, some still fearful, others filled with newfound determination, he felt a swell of hope. The Unity had chosen well. Together, they would break the chains of the progenitors and forge a new, free future for the galaxy. No matter the cost. As their ragtag fleet hurtled through the void, Logan pored over the cryptic message flickering on the view screen, his brow furrowed in concentration. The coordinates, encoded within a fragment of ancient progenitor script, pointed to a region of space uncharted by any known civilization. Vortis, hunched over the navigation console, his antennae twitching with anticipation, punched in the coordinates. "Are you sure about this?" Logan asked, his voice tight with tension. "We're flying blind here. Who knows what we're heading into?" Vortis met his gaze, his compound eyes glinting with determination. "We've come too far to turn back now. If there's even a chance this stronghold holds the key to stopping the progenitors, we have to take it." Logan nodded, his jaw set. He turned to face the motley crew assembled on the bridge, a Zorgelian engineer, an Ixian pilot, a Krundax warrior, and a dozen others, each bearing the scars of their fight against the progenitors. "All right, people, strap in and stay sharp. We're in for one hell of a ride." The ship plunged into the anomalous region, the stars outside the viewports warping and twisting in impossible patterns. The hull groaned and shuddered as gravitational forces pulled them in a dozen different directions at once. Logan gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles white as the ship dodged and wove through a field of pulsating asteroids, each one seeming to shimmer in and out of existence. Suddenly a shrill alarm pierced the air. "Incoming hostile," the Ixian pilot shouted, her third eye wide with fear. "It's massive." Logan stared in horror at the behemoth looming on the view screen. It was a progenitor warship, but unlike any they had seen before. Its hull pulsed with sickly bioluminescence, writhing tendrils of organic matter and twisted metal intertwined in a grotesque dance. It seemed less a ship than a living, breathing nightmare-given form. The progenitor vessel opened fire, lances of searing energy slicing through the void. The crew scrambled to evade, the ship bucking and rolling as blasts hammered its shields. But even as they fought, Logan felt a sickening pressure building in his mind, a psionic assault tearing at the edges of his consciousness. Around him, the crew cried out in pain, clutching their heads, their deepest fears and darkest memories dragged to the surface by the ship's malevolent intelligence. "It's in my head," the Krundax warrior roared, his claws raking deep gouges in the bulkhead. "I can't fight it." Logan gritted his teeth, struggling to focus through the psychic onslaught. He reached out to Vortis, their minds linked by the Unity's power. Together, they pushed back against the progenitor ship's influence, weaving a shimmering shield of psychic energy around the crew. The pressure eased, the crew's cries fading to ragged gasps. "We have to take that thing out from the inside," Logan growled, his eyes locked on the pulsating horror filling the viewscreen. "It's the only way." Vortis nodded grimly. "Agreed, but we'll need to get in close." The pilot, her hands shaking on the controls, wrenched the ship into a sharp dive, skimming perilously close to the progenitor vessel's writhing hull. Logan and Vortis, a strike team at their backs, readied their weapons, the Unity's energy crackling around them like a living shield. The ship's airlock hissed open, and they leaped into the void, magnetic boots clanging against the progenitor ship's twisted surface. A seam appeared in the pulsating flesh, a gaping maw lined with jagged metallic teeth. Weapons raised, the team plunged into the bowels of the nightmare, into a labyrinth of pulsing biomechanical horrors. The corridors shifted and changed around them, walls of throbbing meat and pulsing circuitry forming and reforming in a sickening kaleidoscope. Monstrous things, half machine, half organism, lunged from the shadows, only to be cut down by searing bursts of plasma fire. Logan and Vortis fought their way deeper into the ship, the Unity's power guiding them, a beacon in the madness. And then, at the heart of the horror, they found it. A vast chamber, its walls lined with pulsating pods, each one containing the twisted remains of some long-dead civilization. And at the center, a seething mass of flesh and metal, a singular intelligence that dwarfed any they had encountered before, the true face of the progenitors. Logan felt its presence pressing down on him, a crushing weight of ancient malice and insatiable hunger. It was a mind that had consumed 1,000 civilizations, a being that saw the galaxy as nothing more than a canvas upon which to enact its twisted vision of perfection. Vortis staggered, his mental defenses crumbling under the onslaught. Logan caught him, the Unity's power surging through them both, a defiant beacon against the darkness. They stood before the abomination, weapons raised, knowing that the fate of the galaxy hinged on this moment. The progenitor entity lashed out, tentacles of pulsing flesh and razor-sharp metal whipping through the air. Logan and Vortis dodged and wove, their weapons blazing, the stench of seared flesh filling the chamber. The entity's psychic screams tore at their minds. 1,000 conquered civilizations crying out in agony. But they would not yield. With a final defiant roar, Logan and Vortis unleashed the full might of the Unity, a searing lance of psychic energy that pierced the heart of the progenitor entity. The abomination convulsed, its form unraveling, the stolen knowledge and experiences of countless species spilling forth in a blinding torrent. And as the entity collapsed in on itself, the progenitor ship shuddering and buckling around them, Logan and Vortis knew that this was only the beginning. The progenitor's hold on the galaxy had been weakened, but not yet broken. There were still battles to be fought, minds to be freed before the cycle of destruction could be truly ended. Battered and bloodied but unbroken, they limped back to their waiting ship, the weight of the galaxy's fate heavy on their shoulders. The war against the progenitors would continue, but for now they had struck a blow for freedom, for the right of all species to chart their own destiny among the stars. Logan and Vortis, their bodies battered and minds strained to the breaking point, locked eyes across the pulsating, fleshy expanse of the progenitor hive mind's core. The air thrummed with the discordant harmonies of 1,000 conquered civilizations, their screams and supplications echoing through the twisting corridors of the organic computer. "It's the only way," Vortis rasped, his exoskeleton cracked and oozing ichor. "We have to overload its neural network, hit it with everything the Unity has." Logan nodded, his jaw clenched tight. He reached out through the psychic link, feeling the presence of their ragtag coalition, Zorgelians and Ixthians, Krundaks and Kilthani, all united in their determination to break free from the progenitor's insidious grasp. "Everyone listen up," Logan broadcast, his thoughts resonating across the light years. "We need you, all of you, every memory, every emotion, every scrap of your being. Pour it into the Unity. Give us everything you have." Across the galaxy, a chorus of minds cried out in answer, a rising tide of psychic energy surging through the ethereal pathways of the Unity. Logan and Vortis drew upon that power, focusing it into a single searing lance of pure thought. The progenitor entity shuddered, its form rippling and distorting as the psychic onslaught tore into its neural structure. Ganglia burst and synapses seared, the hive mind's consciousness fragmenting under the relentless assault. Logan and Vortis plunged into the chaotic maelstrom of the entity's mind, their own thoughts intertwined, as they navigated the surreal landscape of shattered memories and broken dreams. They tore through firewalls of twisted logic, ripped apart subroutines of merciless control, seeking out the weaknesses in the progenitor's psyche. And then they found it, a nexus of pulsating light, the core of the hive mind's being. With a final united surge of psychic might, they unleashed a devastating burst of energy, severing the progenitor's connection to the galaxy in a blinding flare of agonized consciousness. Around them, the organic computer convulsed, its biomechanical components liquefying and fusing in a grotesque parody of life. Alarms shrieked and conduits ruptured, the ship tearing itself apart from within. "Go now," Vortis shouted, dragging Logan towards the collapsing corridor that led to their waiting ship. They ran, stumbling and crawling, as the nightmarish landscape disintegrated behind them. They barely made it to their vessel, sealing the airlock just as a wave of seething organic destruction consumed the progenitor ship. With a final, tortured scream, the hive mind's physical form exploded, hurling Logan and Vortis's ship tumbling through the void. In the silence that followed, Logan and Vortis lay slumped against the bulkheads, their bodies broken and their minds drifting on the edge of oblivion. Through the viewport, they watched as the remnants of the progenitor entity dissipated into the void, a fading echo of a primordial nightmare. Across the galaxy, the progenitor's thralls blinked and stumbled, the chains of control falling away like shattered glass. On 100 worlds, the Galactic Council species emerged from their long slumber, blinking in the unfamiliar light of freedom. But even as the realization of their victory sank in, Logan and Vortis knew that their struggle was far from over. The progenitor's insidious influence had shaped the very fabric of galactic society, and the scars of their reign would not heal easily. As they drifted through the starlit void, Logan and Vortis exchanged a weary glance, the weight of their newfound responsibility settling upon their shoulders. They were the galaxy's living legends now, the heroes who had broken the progenitor's grasp. But they were also something more, the guiding lights in a galaxy left reeling by the revelation of its own origins. With a grunt of pain, Logan reached for the ship's controls, setting a course for the nearest friendly outpost. It was time to begin their new journey, to help the shattered species of the galaxy find their own paths in the wake of the progenitor's fall. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Logan and Vortis steeled themselves for the challenges ahead. They knew that the spectre of the progenitors would linger long after their destruction, a haunting reminder of the depths of control and manipulation to which a civilization could sink. But they also knew that within each species, within each individual, lay the potential for something greater, the capacity for self-determination, for growth, for hope. And as long as that potential endured, the galaxy would never truly be lost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.